Welcome to the HFY Tales channel. Remember to like and subscribe if you like the story. Enjoy and take care.
The air was thick with dust and despair as the petite alien girl hurriedly maneuvered through the shadowy halls of the mining complex. The harsh, metallic clang of pickaxes echoed off the cold, stone walls, punctuated by the muffled cries of her fellow workers forced to labor in the darkness. The deeper she ventured, the more claustrophobic the environment became. The flickering lights above cast ominous shadows that danced like ghosts across the stony ground. Her name was Lyra, a small yet fierce creature from the planet Valthur, a world once vibrant with lush flora and fauna, now reduced to a desolate wasteland due to the greed of humans seeking its precious resources. Lyra's emerald skin glimmered in the faint light, a stark contrast to the grime coating the floor, but her spirit was heavy with the chains of bondage. She had been enslaved for years, her dreams of freedom eroding with each passing sunrise that she witnessed from behind the mine's barred gates. She worked alongside others like her, various alien species who shared the same grim fate. Some had been there longer, their bodies worn down and spirits nearly extinguished. Today, Lyra felt the weight of their hopelessness pressing down on her shoulders. As she sweated and toiled, she allowed herself to escape in her mind, imagining a life beyond the cruel confines of the mine. A life where she could feel the sun on her face without the fear of reprisal. But hope was a fragile flame, and today it flickered dimly in her heart. Suddenly, a resounding roar broke through the air, sending chills down her spine. Lyra's heart raced as the sound of boots echoed in the distance. The overseer, a brutish figure known for his cruelty, was approaching. She crouched down, hoping to go unnoticed, her breath catching in her throat as she clutched her pickaxe tightly. The overseer's shadow blackened the entrance to her tunnel, and she squeezed her eyes shut, praying for his absence. "Get back to work, you lazy scum!" he bellowed, voice a blend of fury and command, sending chills through her fragile frame. It was then that she caught sight of him, the human. A giant among them, his figure towered over the others, shoulders broad and muscles defined, wrapped in the fabric of his mining gear. His name was Jarek, known among the miners as a solitary figure, often absorbed in his thoughts rather than the relentless grind of work. Today, he stood watch over Lyra and the others, a rare flicker of protection in a world riddled with injustice. Jarek's gray eyes scanned the room, filled with a complexity that betrayed his struggle with the roles they both occupied. Lyra felt an inexplicable connection form between them, a silent acknowledgement that transcended their vastly different worlds. In that moment, the weight of her despair lessened slightly. As the overseer continued his tirade, something ignited within Lyra. Beneath the surface of her fear, a defiant fire began to flicker. She would not surrender to the darkness forever. The giant human, distant yet achingly near, stirred something deep within her, a hope she didn't realize she still possessed. "One day," she whispered under her breath, her heart racing, "I will break free." The oppressive sounds of the mines dulled as the day wore on, but Lyra's spirit had ignited a flicker of rebellion within her heart. She stole glances at Jarek as he worked, noting his thoughtful demeanor amidst the chaos. Unlike the others who toiled with their heads down, he often looked up, scanning the darkness for something, or someone, that could not be found in the cavernous depths of the mines. As the shift ended, exhaustion weighed heavily on the workers, but Lyra felt invigorated. In the shadows, as the overseer barked orders and the miners shuffled toward the exits, she lingered behind, hoping for a moment to speak to the giant whom fate had thrown into her path. "Jarek," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. He turned, eyes locking onto hers with an intensity that made her heart race. "What is it, little one?" he asked, kneeling slightly to meet her gaze. His voice was deep yet surprisingly tender, a gentle contrast to the harsh environment around them. "Why do you stand apart?" Lyra asked boldly. "You see us, you feel our pain. Why are you not like the others?" Jarek sighed, the weight of his thoughts filling the air between them. "I'm not proud of what we do here. I came to this planet for resources, but I never understood the cost, until now. It's wrong, Lyra. All of it." His words resonated deep within her. He understood, he saw her. The connection surged between them like electricity, and she felt her fears begin to dissolve in the strength of his presence. Do you think? Lyra hesitated, her heart pounding in her chest. Do you think we could be free? Jarek's expression shifted, a mix of determination and unease. It will not be easy. The overseers will not let us go without a fight. But there is strength in numbers. If we could rally together, those who share our desire for freedom. Lyra felt a rush of courage. You could help us, couldn't you? You could stand with us against them. Perhaps. He looked thoughtful, his brow furrowing. But I cannot simply abandon my post. If I am caught conspiring with slaves, it would mean my life. Then we must be clever, Lyra proposed, her mind racing. We can gather allies in secret. We can find a way. Jarek searched her eyes, seeing the fierce resolve that burned within her. If you believe we can succeed, then I will help you. But trust will be crucial. They will use fear to keep you in line. You must move carefully. Lyra's heart raced with hope. For the first time in a long while, the shadows of despair faded, and she grasped the chance for something more, something beyond survival. As the last of the miners trickled out, Jarek crouched closer, his voice low, almost conspiratorial. Meet me tonight. I know a place where we can talk freely. But you must be careful, keep your head low and watch for eyes that may be watching. With a nod, Lyra could hardly contain her excitement. As their fingers brushed, a spark ignited, prompting her to imagine a world beyond the mines, filled with laughter, freedom, and unity. As darkness enveloped the vast mining complex, Lyra's heart surged with the possibilities of rebellion against their oppressive fate. Tonight, she would begin her journey toward freedom, one that would intertwine her fate with Jarek's in ways she had never imagined. The mine's oppressive gloom fell away as the final shift ended, the sounds of labor replaced by a chilling stillness that filled the air with anticipation. Lyra's heart raced as she navigated the dark corridors leading to the hidden cavern where Jarek had suggested they meet. Each step echoed her growing excitement and fear, the impending confrontation with destiny tingling in her veins. The path twisted and turned, dimly lit by sporadic flickers from overhead lights, casting eerie shadows that danced on the rocky walls. She paused briefly, catching her breath, then ventured forth, determined not to turn back. As she reached the entrance to the secluded cavern, a small alcove hidden behind a towering rock formation, she saw Jarek's silhouette waiting for her. Lyra, he greeted, his voice low and steady. As she stepped into the dappled light, the warmth of his presence enveloped her, momentarily dispelling the chill of her surroundings. You made it. I wasn't going to miss this, she said, her spirit emboldened. The thrill of secrecy fueled her determination. What's our plan? Jarek leaned against the stone, eyes scanning the cave entrance. First, we must build trust among the other miners. He paused, wrestling with the implications of their rebellion. Many are too afraid to act. They won't risk their lives unless they truly believe change is possible. I understand, Lyra nodded, passion infusing her words. But if we speak to those who feel the same, we can create a chain reaction. We just need to start somewhere. Jarek regarded her, admiration flickering in his gray eyes. You have more courage than most I know. Your spirit is infectious, Lyra. Encouraged by his praise, Lyra took a bold step forward. Let's find those who will stand with us. I can speak to those in my section of the mine, they trust me. And perhaps you can reach out to the others among the humans, those who might share our views? Agreed, Jarek replied, a determined glint in his eye. We can use the shifts to our advantage and gather in small groups unnoticed by the overseers. Their conversation flowed like water, exchanging plans and ideas that built off each other's enthusiasm. Each moment spent together felt like a lifeline, and Lyra found herself reveling in his presence. Tonight, I want to tell you more about my people, she suggested, her heart pounding with vulnerability. We come from a world of beauty, where the air is thick with flowers and our skies are painted with colors you've only dreamed of. We were free once. Jarek's expression softened, entranced by her words. What happened? The humans came, she replied, her voice trembling slightly. They sought our resources, so they enslaved us. They turned our land to ash and our people into laborers. Lyra's heart ached with the weight of her past, but she wouldn't let it swallow her. But I refuse to let their cruelty define us. As she spoke, Jarek leaned closer, their faces illuminated by the cave's glow. You're not defined by your past, Lyra. You're forging a future that requires boldness and action. The moment hung between them, charged with promise and unspoken emotions. As if drawn together by an invisible force, Lyra reached out to touch Jarek's sturdy hand. Together, we can break these chains. He clasped her hand tightly, and in that instant, a sense of unity enveloped them. The potential of their alliance blossomed, nourished by a desire for freedom, connection, and something deeper than mere survival. But as their fingers intertwined, a distant clang reverberated through the cavern, sending a shiver down Lyra's spine. We should go, she whispered, the sudden urgency snapping her back to reality. Meet tomorrow, same place, Jarek said, his voice steady even as their connection lingered in the air. With a shared nod, they parted ways, each step echoing with the thrill of their newfound alliance. As Lyra ventured back into the darkness of the mine, she felt the palpable spark of hope, a fire ignited, and together they would forge a path toward liberation. The following day unfolded with an anxious energy coursing through Lyra. Determined to gather allies, she steeled herself for what lay ahead. The oppressive darkness of the mine felt different now, less like a prison and more like a battleground where hope might be reclaimed. She approached her fellow workers with resolve, whispering to them amidst the clatter of tools and the grunts of exertion. Listen, I need your attention, Lyra called to a small group huddled in a corner as they wiped the sweat from their brows. She could feel the weight of the overseer's gaze, ever condescending, yet the flame of rebellion burned brightly within her. I have a plan to escape this life. Murmurs of confusion rippled through the miners, skepticism written across their faces. One of her closest friends, Kieran, a stout-built alien with a knack for mechanics, stepped forward. What are you talking about, Lyra? You know the overseers won't let us go. I know, she said, her voice firm. But we can fight back. Jarek, the human miner, he believes we can band together. I've spoken to him. He wants to help. The murmurs grew louder, hope and doubt struggled for dominance in the atmosphere. Lyra, humans are the reason we're in this mess. Why would we trust one of them? Kieran's mistrust echoed the opinions of many. Because Jarek is different, Lyra insisted. He sees the injustice. He's willing to stand with us. He fights against his own kind, all to help us find freedom. Kieran paused, glancing at the others who hesitated, uncertain. And what if it's a trap? What if we risk everything and end up worse off? What if you don't? Lyra shot back, her heart racing with urgency. We live in cages, Kieran. You've seen your friends broken under the overseer's whip. If we don't act now, we'll die here, slaves to their cruelty. We can't let fear bind us any longer. The breath of silence hung heavy in the air as her impassioned plea sank in. Slowly, Kieran's expression shifted, considering her words alongside the grudging resilience of his spirit. All right. I'll listen. But we'll need more than just words to convince others. As Lyra nodded, a flicker of hope ignited within the small group. We need to meet tonight, like I did with Jarek. We can plan together. If we can reach out to those who share our desire for freedom, we can turn this around. The sun dipped behind the jagged rocks of the mine's entrance as Lyra moved through the narrow tunnels, rallying her fellow workers. By nightfall, she had successfully gathered a small group of insurgents, including Kieran, eager to embrace the possibility of revolt. That evening, as the shadows deepened across the cavern, Lyra and her newfound allies congregated in the hidden alcove where she had met Jarek the previous night. Nervous energy heightened the air, a mix of anticipation and fear as they awaited the arrival of the towering human. When Jarek stepped into the cave, relief washed over Lyra. You came, she said, her voice filled with gratitude. Jarek nodded, scanning the gathered group with cautious optimism. It's good to see you've managed to gather some allies. Everyone, this is Jarek, Lyra introduced, her heart pounding with the weight of the action ahead. He is one of us now? He will help us escape. Jarek stepped forward, his imposing stature contrasting sharply with the smaller aliens. I know there are fears regarding trust, he began, speaking to the group. But I want you to know that I stand against the overseers, against the system that enslaves you. Together, we can change our fate. The murmurs of uncertainty rolled through the group, but Lyra watched as the seeds of determination began to take root. Jarek's presence exuded a quiet strength, and she felt a wave of hope swelling within her. We must act strategically, Jarek continued. The overseers have eyes everywhere. For now, let's work quietly to build our strength, gather supplies, identify potential escape routes, and know the patterns of the guards. Kieran stepped up, emboldened by Lyra's fierce spirit. We can create distractions. If we coordinate our efforts during shifts, we can exploit the weaknesses in their security. Good, Jarek nodded approvingly. Information is our greatest ally. Gather intelligence on any weaknesses, be it in the guards' routines or supplies. As the meeting continued, Lyra could feel her heart pounding with exhilaration. They strategized, weaving intricate plans that highlighted each member's strengths. From Kieran's aptitude with machines to Lyra's ability to navigate the tunnels, each voice contributed vital ideas and insights, solidifying the unity forming amongst them. But the atmosphere was not without gravity. Amidst their enthusiasm, Lyra felt a tremor of reality, a recognition that the overseers would not sit idly by. One misstep, and they could all pay a grave price. As the meeting came to a close, Jarek grasped Lyra's hand, squeezing it gently. We have found strength in numbers, and now, we take the first steps toward liberation. In that moment, the connection they shared felt stronger than mere alliance. It was a bond forged in hope, resilience, and the promise of better days. Together, they would challenge the darkness that had imprisoned them for far too long. After the group dispersed, Lyra found herself lingering for a moment with Jarek, their eyes meeting in an unspoken understanding. You believe in this? She asked softly. Now more than ever, he replied, his gaze unwavering. There is a power in hope, a force that can unite us. I believe we will win this fight. With determination blossoming within her, Lyra nodded. They would create their path together, chains could be broken, and freedom was within their reach, if they dared to seize it. As the days turned into nights, Lyra and Jarek worked tirelessly alongside their growing band of rebels. Whispers of revolt began to spread through the mine, each fleeting conversation woven with anticipation and urgency. But amid the excitement of their plans, shadows of doubt lingered in the corners of their hearts, threatening to undermine their efforts. With each improvised meeting, the dynamic shifted, the faces around her began to reflect a glimmer of hope, yet Lyra couldn't shake the fear settling in her gut. One mistake could cost them everything. Kieran had grown increasingly anxious, often lingering behind in their discussions. It was in the quiet of the mine, as they prepared for another meeting, that he finally voiced his concerns. Lyra, I know you believe in this, but I worry. What if we fail? The overseers have eyes everywhere. The consequences could be dire. We risk it all, and for what? A dream? Lyra felt her own resolve falter slightly. We're risking everything because our current reality is unbearable. If we don't act, we will be slaves forever. And how many lives will we lose in the process? Kieran pressed, voice low but filled with emotion. We need to consider if our wish for freedom is worth the blood it may cost. Lyra paused, the weight of his words pressing down heavily upon her. She could see the fear etched on his face, mirrored in the worried looks exchanged among their allies. But just as doubt threatened to overwhelm her, a memory sparked within Lyra, flashes of her carefree days on Valthur, sprinting through fields of vibrant flowers, feeling the sunlight warm her skin without a cloud of fear looming overhead. What if we succeed? She countered, her determination reigniting. This is about more than just our lives, this is about the future of our people. We can show everyone that we refuse to be shackled. With newfound conviction bubbling within her, she rallied their spirits once more. Every moment we wait is another moment wasted under the overseer's rule. We need to be strong, to stand together. We have each other, and with that, We have power. As the meeting began, Kieran's gaze softened, and he nodded, allowing Lyra's fervor to wash over him. All right. But we must be careful. I'll help gather more supplies. We will need everything in our preparations. The other miners echoed Kieran's resolve, uniting behind Lyra's vision. Jarek, standing supportive and resolute, surveyed their gathering with pride, strengthened by their commitment to the cause. The support you've built is remarkable, Lyra. But we must remain vigilant. The overseers won't turn a blind eye for long, and if they discover our plans, we will fight back, Lyra interjected, candor threading through her voice. But we need to do it smartly. We learn their routine, their weaknesses, and we use that knowledge. We will deploy distractions where necessary. Agreement rippled through the group, and for that moment, doubts melted away as determination surged. The miners exchanged glances filled with resolve, igniting a spark in Lyra's heart that propelled her forward. However, amidst the fervor, a small voice still contained her. What if everything fell apart? As the night deepened, the meeting concluded, but Lyra couldn't shake the niggling doubts. She stole away for a moment, needing clarity amidst the chaos. In the quiet cavern, the dark stone walls felt both imposing and familiar, reminders of her history, filled with grief and loss. It was then that she heard footsteps, heavy and deliberate. Heart racing, she pressed herself against the cool surface of the cave, holding her breath as the unmistakable figure of the overseer entered the chamber, flanked by 2 guards. The glint of metal caught her eye. If she was discovered here, it would be the end of everything she had worked for. The overseer's voice boomed through the caverns, echoing with authority. I know you're all conspiring. This rebellion, this madness, will not end well for you. You belong to us, and the sooner you remember that, the better, he sneered, eyes gleaming with menace. Lyra's heart pounded in her chest, panic coursing through her veins. If they discovered her alliance with Jarek and the others, it would mean dire consequences. A flash of courage surged within her as the overseer continued his threats, a fire igniting in her spirit. No one's going to silence us. Lyra whispered fiercely to herself, clenching her fists at her sides, determination flooding her with purpose. She would not let fear dictate her fate. Quietly, she slipped back through the shadows, fingers brushing against the cool stone as she made her way to her comrades. They would continue to fight. They would press on, undeterred by the looming threats, for freedom was worth every risk they took. And as she rejoined the group, Lyra resolved to face their challenges head-on, even if the shadows of doubt whispered in her ear. Together, they would overcome. Together, they would break the chains. With every passing day, Lyra felt the momentum of their rebellion grow stronger. Whispers turned into schemes, and those who had once hidden in the shadows now stood up, their voices echoing hope and defiance of despair. Yet, behind the vibrant hum of ambition, the shadows of doubt still lurked, reminders that they were operating on a tightrope, one misstep away from catastrophe. As the next meeting approached, Lyra's mind raced with thoughts of their strategy. She sat quietly in the alcove, sketching out the plans they had developed. Jarek had emphasized the importance of creating distractions and sowing confusion among the overseers. But with every plan, the stakes felt higher, and the risks loomed larger in her mind. When the group gathered, palpable energy filled the cavern, the flickering glow from their makeshift lanterns casting dancing shadows on the stone walls. Lyra's heart swelled with pride at the assembly of miners gathered there. Her gaze swept across their faces, determined yet anxious, reflecting a mixture of excitement and fear that had become all too familiar. Jarek stepped forward, the weight of his presence anchoring the meeting. We've outlined our key points of action. Tonight, we'll covertly distribute the supplies we gathered. Kieran and I will create a diversion at the far end of the mine, drawing the overseers away from their posts. That's when Lyra and the rest of you will make your move. Lyra felt the energy of the group shift as the plan rolled out. Once the guards are distracted, we'll slip into the supply tunnels and gather what we can, tools, food, ropes, anything that can aid our escape, she added confidently. Kieran's brow furrowed. But the overseer knows his men well. If we don't seize the moment, the chance could slip through our fingers. It will take precise timing. Simplicity is key, Jarek affirmed. Stay focused. Don't let fear overwhelm you. We create confusion, we move swiftly. Lyra's heart raced with adrenaline as the plan took shape. We can do this. We have to. As the meeting progressed, voices intertwined, each miner contributing their thoughts, refining their actions until the details felt solidified. Lyra could sense the energy in the air, their collective hope becoming a tangible force. It pulsed with potential, lifting their spirits and stoking the flames of rebellion within her. But as the hours ticked away and shadows deepened, doubt began to creep back in. Would they truly be able to pull it off? What if someone was caught? What if the overseers grew wise to their actions? As if sensing her turmoil, Jarek caught her gaze and moved closer, concern etched on his face. You're worried. They could trap us, Lyra admitted softly. What if we're discovered? I don't want to see anyone else hurt. We're pushing into dangerous territory. True, he acknowledged, his voice steady. But without the risk, we stay trapped. You've ignited something in all of us. Your courage continues to inspire this cause. Remember, freedom carries a cost, but the weight of our chains is far heavier. Lyra met his gaze, seeking reassurance. What if we fail? His hand found hers, warm and grounding. We won't fail. Not as long as we have each other. This bond we've forged will carry us through the storm. With those words, Lyra felt a flicker of warmth blossom within her, a fierce determination reigniting amid her fears. Together, they would face this challenge head-on, for freedom was not just a dream, it was a tangible future that awaited them. As the night descended upon the mines, Lyra steeled herself for the upheaval that lay ahead. Their unity would be their strength, weaving hope into a tapestry of rebellion that could not be silenced. Tonight, they would take their first true steps toward liberation, a journey into the unknown for their freedom. The mine was alive with tension as Lyra and the others assembled for their daring escape plan. The air crackled like a thunderstorm, each miner's heartbeat resonating with the gravity of their undertaking. In the dim light of the alcove, Lyra exchanged anxious glances with Kieran, Jarek, and the other rebels. They were no longer simply the oppressed, they had become a collective force determined to reclaim their lives. As the clock ticked closer to their appointed time, Lyra felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through her. Every moment spent in the mine had prepared her for this, but now, directly confronting the overseers was a terrifying prospect. The flickers of doubt from earlier began to fade as the flame of resolve burned brighter within her. Remember, Jarek reiterated, his voice steady as he addressed the group. Once we initiate the distraction at the far end, we have limited time. Stick to the plan, move as one, and do not hesitate. He placed a reassuring hand on Lyra's shoulder, and she nodded, grateful for him grounding her. As the group dispersed into the shadows of the mine, Lyra took a moment to steady her breathing. She focused on the faint hum of her heartbeat, allowing herself to adapt to the rhythm of urgency that now filled the air. They reached their positions, ready to implement the plan that had been meticulously crafted over the last few days. Minutes ticked by in anxious anticipation. Suddenly, the sound of clattering metal echoed through the cavern, followed by distant shouts as Kieran and Jarek initiated their diversion. The noise snapped Lyra's focus into action, the moment had arrived. Now! Move! Lyra called, feeling the weight of the gathering energy propel her forward. She led her comrades down the narrow corridor, weaving through the darkness toward the supply tunnels they had identified earlier. The buzzing excitement lent wings to their feet. They raced past towering rock formations, the tension palpable. They stayed close, whispering encouragements to one another, bolstered by the sound of chaos echoing behind them. As they reached the entry point to the supply tunnels, relief flooded through Lyra, they had made it this far. The entrance was unguarded, as they had hoped. She motioned for everyone to gather closely, her heart pounding in sync with the urgency of the moment. Let's grab whatever we can. We don't have much time, Lyra urged, her voice a blend of excitement and anxiety. The miners spread out, raiding the shelves and crates that lined the tunnel wall. Lyra dug through bags filled with basic rations, stale bread, dried fruits, and water. She shoved fistfuls into her backpack alongside a few tools they might find useful. She glanced back to see Jarek and Kieran working efficiently beside her, stuffing supplies into their packs. Lyra could feel the excitement mingling with the awareness that they could be discovered at any moment. Each sound echoed the desperate urgency of their mission, the rattling of their bags, the clinking of metal tools, the distant chaos of the diversion still raging in the distance. Then suddenly, shouts rang out, sharper and closer. Her stomach dropped. "They're coming!" Lyra shouted, voice rising above the noise of panic. "We need to move, now." Every miner scrambled to gather what they could, tossing supplies haphazardly into their bags. As they hurriedly regrouped, Lyra's heart raced in alarm. The sound of boots echoed through the tunnels, a harsh reminder that they were against the clock. "Go, go!" Jarek urged, guiding them toward the back entrance leading to the escape route they had scouted earlier. The group bolted into the corridor, hearts pounding in unison, and hope surged through them like wildfire. Yet suddenly, the corridor opened into a larger chamber. Light flooded in from above, and as Lyra entered, her breath caught at the sight before her. Their exit lay beyond, a narrow ledge that spanned the abyss below. "Is that?" Kieran began, peering over the edge. The ledge seemed perilously thin, precariously suspended between two cliffs of rock. "We can't go back," Lyra insisted, feeling the descent of panic. "We must cross." Jarek stepped up beside her, assessing the ledge. "Stay close together. One at a time. Move cautiously." Lyra held her breath, stepping to the front as Kieran began the crossing. The moment felt surreal, as though she were suspended in time. She followed closely behind him, the ground shifting beneath her feet as her pulse quickened. But just as they were halfway across, a sudden voice erupted from the entrance behind them, a familiar, booming laugh. Well, what do we have here?" The overseer sneered. "Running away, are we?" Lyra's heart sank as she turned to see the overseer standing with a few guards, their expressions twisted in triumph. Panic surged through her, and she turned back toward the ledge. "Hurry!" she urged, her voice piercing through the chaos. Kieran lunged ahead, and Lyra felt the ground quaking beneath their feet. Just as the first guard broke into a sprint after them, threatening shouts rang through the chamber. "Go! I'll hold them off!" Jarek shouted, rushing forward to intercept the guards while the miners continued to cross. "Don't look back!" "Jarek, no!" Lyra screamed, fear surging through her, but there was no time for hesitation. The others needed her to be strong, to lead them forward. She swallowed her fear, pushing ahead on shaky legs. One by one, they crossed the ledge, the overseer's enraged shouts echoing behind them. Lyra could sense the danger closing in but kept her eyes focused on the other side, her heart a mingling of fear and determination. Finally, Kieran and the last of the miners reached solid rock, and they turned to witness Jarek, bravely standing between them and the guards, buying precious seconds as they scrambled for freedom. Lyra's heart ached at the sight of her friend standing alone against the impending chaos. "Hurry!" Jarek shouted again, but Lyra felt the steel of her resolve harden within her. They couldn't leave him behind. "No! We won't abandon him!" she shouted, turning toward the group. "We'll fight!" But even as her flesh screamed for caution, she knew that this was their moment, the culmination of their struggle. They couldn't allow the overseers to keep them under their oppressive rule any longer. "Go!" Kieran shouted, pulling Lyra to the side as they forged ahead. "We can regroup and come back for him." Tears burned at the corners of Lyra's eyes, but she nodded, knowing he was right. Together they continued racing toward the beginning of their freedom, fueled by hope, but with the heavy weight of sacrifice and uncertainty trailing behind them. As they disappeared into the dark, she cast one last lingering glance back at Jarek, resolute and defiant against the tide of despair. This battle was just the beginning, their fight for freedom wouldn't end here. They would extend their reach, together. The dark veil of night hung heavy as Lyra and the remaining rebels stumbled through the unfamiliar terrain. They had escaped the mines, but the price weighed heavily on their hearts. The image of Jarek fighting valiantly against the guards burned in Lyra's mind, a bittersweet reminder of the man who had sparked their rebellion. As they reached the outer fringes of the mining complex, the sound of chaos echoed behind them, but ahead, the wilderness opened up, vast and uncharted, a stark contrast to the cold confines of the mine. Here, they were free, yet the void left by their friend felt insurmountable. "Lyra, what do we do now?" Kieran's voice broke through her melancholy. "We regroup. We need to find a safe place to plan our next steps. We won't forget Jarek, he fought bravely for us," Lyra said firmly. The group trudged through thick underbrush until they found a secluded grove, a fleeting sanctuary amidst the chaos. "There," Lyra declared, "we need to reach out to others. There must be groups of miners, maybe those who escaped before us. If we can rally them, we can strengthen our cause." Days turned into weeks, and Lyra led her growing band of rebels, forging new alliances with other escaped miners and alien communities depleted by the Overseer's tyranny. News of their success spread quickly, igniting a rebellion across the region. One fateful evening, Lyra felt a palpable shift in the air. Hope began to replace despair. "Today, we take the fight back," she declared. "Jarek's sacrifice won't be in vain." As dusk fell, the rebels stealthily approached the mining complex once more, their hearts steeled for the confrontation ahead. Minutes ticked by in anxious anticipation. Suddenly, the sound of clattering metal echoed through the cavern as Kieran began their distraction. "Now! Move!" Lyra called, and they surged down the corridors, navigating quickly until they reached the Overseer's control center, the epicenter of their grief. The Overseer awaited them, cloaked in authority and disdain. "You think you can take this from me?" he thundered. "This ends today," Lyra shouted defiantly. The ensuing struggle erupted in fierce intensity. Lyra fought with everything she had, her heart pounding with memories of Jarek fueling her strength. With one decisive blow, she knocked the Overseer off balance, triumph swelling within her as he fell. The remaining guards faltered, their will crumbling under the pressure of their defiance. With the Overseer defeated, victory surged like wildfire among the rebels. Lyra stood amid her comrades, a mix of elation and sorrow enveloping her. "We are free!" she shouted, her spirit aflame with purpose. In the days that followed, they worked tirelessly to dismantle the oppressive systems the Overseers had left behind. Lyra ensured they honored the sacrifices made along the way, their tales woven into the fabric of their newfound community. As the sun set one serene evening over Valthur, Lyra remembered Jarek, vowing to guide her people toward a vibrant future devoid of tyranny. They had transformed their pain into power, united in their struggle for freedom. Together, they would not just survive, they would thrive. With courage in her heart and allies at her side, Lyra stepped into the light of a new dawn, a testament to resilience, hope, and the enduring bonds of camaraderie.